She wasn't there when the bodies were found. Not in the room where her mother lay. Not in the room where her brother lay. Not anywhere in that small cabin at all. For 3 years, nobody knew if 12-year-old Tina Sharp was alive, being held somewhere, or already gone. Her family didn't know. The police didn't know. Then, in the spring of 1984, a man walking through the woods 60 miles from her home, just collecting bottles, nothing more, found a human skull. This is one of the most disturbing, unsolved cases in American history. Not because the killer was some evil genius who outsmarted police, but because, for over 40 years, almost everyone involved in this case has believed they already know who did it. To understand what happened, you have to understand where it happened. Keddie, California is barely a town, a scattering of about 30 rustic cabins built around a railroad stop deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains. By 1981, it wasn't the charming mountain retreat had once been marketed as. It was quiet, cheap, and full of people passing through. One of those people was Glenna Sue Sharp. She went by Sue, a mother of 5 who'd left Connecticut after separating from her husband. She moved her kids across the country to be near her brother, eventually settling into a small 4-room cabin. House number 28. Her children were John, 15, Sheila, 14, Tina, 12, Rick, 10, and Greg, just 5 years old. By all accounts, it was a normal working-class family trying to start over in a new place. That ended on the night of April 11th, 1981. The night. That evening, Sue's oldest daughter, Sheila, left to sleep over at the neighbor's cabin. Sue stayed home with her 2 youngest boys, Rick and Greg, along with a neighborhood friend named Justin Smart, who was staying the night. By morning, Sue Sharp, John Sharp, and Dana Wingate were dead. All 3 had been bound with rope and medical tape. All 3 had been beaten, stabbed, or strangled. In some cases, all 3. And in the very next room, close enough to hear everything, Rick, Greg, and Justin Smart were untouched. Physically, at least. 14-year-old Sheila came home the next morning to change for church and walked straight into it. But there was a 4th Sharp child unaccounted for. Tina, 12 years old. And she was simply gone. The missing girl. For 3 years, Tina Sharp's fate was completely unknown. Her family had already buried her mother and brother. They didn't get to bury her. They didn't get to know anything. Then, in April of 1984, someone gathering bottles in the woods near Camp 18 in Butte County, about 60 miles from Keddie, found a human skull. Investigators searched the area and recovered more remains, along with a child's blanket, a blue jacket, a pair of jeans missing a back pocket, and an empty roll of surgical tape. Dental records confirmed what everyone feared. It was Tina. The medical examiner determined something that still unsettles investigators today. Decomposition suggested she had likely been alive for months after the murders. Not killed that same night with the others. Kept somewhere. For a long time. Whoever took her out of that cabin didn't kill her right away. The one witness. So who took her? The only possible witness was a 12-year-old boy, Justin Smart, the neighbor's son who'd been sleeping in the next room. At first, he told police he'd slept through the entire thing. Later, under hypnosis, he told a different story. He said he saw his, Sue Sharp, with 2 men in the cabin that night. One had a mustache and long hair. The other was clean-shaven. In his account, John and Dana came home. An argument broke out. It turned violent. And, at some point, one of the men walked Tina out the back door before returning to finish off the others. Composite sketches were made from his description. But instead of using a trained forensic artist, police handed the job to a local volunteer with no formal sketch training. Those sketches never led anywhere. The man next door. 2 names surfaced almost immediately. Marty Smart, Justin's stepfather, living just 2 cabins away, and his house guest, a man named John Beau Babade, who was reported to have ties to organized crime in Chicago. The circumstantial details are hard to ignore. The night of the murders, witnesses saw both men at the local bar dressed in suits and sunglasses, unusual for 2 unemployed men in a rural mountain town, which some investigators later suspected was a deliberate move to make themselves memorable, to build an alibi. Smart told police a claw hammer had gone missing from his home right around the time of the murders. Both men left the county within days. Botched told investigators several things that turned out to be false: that he'd been a Chicago police officer for 18 years, that Marilyn Smart was his niece, that he'd lived in Keddie longer than he actually had. None of it was properly checked at the time. And yet, both men were questioned and let go. Reports differ on what happened next. Some say Smart passed a polygraph test administered by the sheriff. Others involved in reopening the case later said he actually failed it. That contradiction has never been publicly resolved. Here's the detail that makes this case different from most cold cases. The sheriff running the investigation and Marty Smart were reportedly close friends. The letter. Years later, during a renewed investigation, a letter surfaced. Smart had written it to his wife, Marilyn, sometime after the murders. In part, it read, "I've paid the price of your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want?" Marilyn said she didn't remember ever receiving it, but she confirmed the handwriting was his. At the time it surfaced, it wasn't treated as a confession. It doesn't appear to have been followed up on. In a 2008 documentary about the case, Marilyn said publicly that she believed her husband and Botched were responsible for all 4 murders. Both men died without ever being charged. Botched in 1988, Smart in 2006. What's left behind? Over the decades, the case has resurfaced again and again. In the 1990s, a confessed serial killer briefly claimed responsibility before being ruled out. In 2013, the sheriff's department reopened the investigation. In 2016, a hammer matching Smart's description turned up in a dried-up pond nearby. Placed there, investigators believe, not lost by accident. That same period, an old recording resurfaced. An anonymous 911 call from 1984, made just after Tina's remains were discovered, in which the caller identified the remains as Tina's before dental records had officially confirmed it. In 2018, DNA recovered from tape at the crime scene was matched to a living person. Cabin 28 itself was torn down in 2004. As of the most recent public statements from investigators, they believe more than one person is still alive with knowledge of what really happened that night. Not necessarily the killers themselves, but people who helped make sure nobody was ever punished for it. No one has ever been charged. Not the 2 men most people believe were responsible. Not anyone else who may have helped cover it up. Tina Sharp was 12 years old. She survived whatever happened in that cabin only to be taken somewhere else and killed later, alone. More than 4 decades later, her family is still waiting for someone to say her name out loud in a courtroom.